Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Pre-IPO Stocks podcast. With me, I got Nick Fusco, CEO of 8View, a pre-IPO secondary market pricing company, and Clint Sorensen, Chief Investment Officer at WellShield, an outsourced CIO and investment research company. Okay, we've got three topics for today. First, we got Deel, which I got to tell you is one of my favorite companies out there, right? But Nick and 8View put together a great report this week. I'll add all the stuff in post-production, Nick, but could you open us up and just let us know what your thoughts on Deel and we can get into it with them.
Sure thing. So speaking through the Deel, what is it? What is it all about? First and foremost, it is up. So it's about 14% up within its own space. I would probably land them in the HR tech space, so that there are some peers there. But they're a leading provider of global payroll and compliance. So for anyone that hires multiple employees across multiple states, you'll know that this is a pretty monumental headache. They kind of solve the problem when you're going international as well. So that's really, really big. I have no ownership of Deel. I'm not saying that for any other reason other than running my own business. It is quite a nightmare. They've got something like 15,000 active customers, revenues continually growing, and I mean, they're working from companies the same size as our own, maybe on this call, all the way up to bigger shops like a Reebok, Shopify, Revolut, and the like. So really coming out of nowhere, explosive growth from Deel, and this year is no different for them.
So Clint, like we had talked, I think maybe 6 months ago about this concept of companies that were way down in secondary market valuation, but revenue was way up, right? So I went into PitchBook, like Deel's revenue from 2020 to 2021 was up 470%. And then from
Amazing.
2021 to 2022, are you ready? It was up 417%. So these guys are like crazy growth, right? $295 million in 2022 revenue. And I would have to think they're probably still cranking this year, right? But like talk to us about, like, give us your thoughts on why you like these companies. I mean, it's probably obvious, right? But why you like companies where revenue is way up, but the price is way down, right? Talk to us about that.
Man, classic, growth at a reasonable price, right? And I think that's ultimately what we're finding in a company like this. When you have revenues up, what they're up that quickly, and yet, they're what was their last round versus what their current price at?
Yeah, last round's at 12.5 billion, and then based on, and this is like 2 weeks old, but based off of Nick's secondary market pricing, I haven't met. I'm sorry. Last round was 12.1 billion. That was May of 2022, and they're at 12.5 now, right?
Yeah, see,
so
it's a steal.
Yeah,
well, I mean, you're getting it at a reasonable price because you've grown like crazy. So yeah, I like names like this, obviously.
Yeah, it's an interesting play. And there's other names out there too, I think, in this space as well. But Deel, I got to tell you, this company I think is special. So if you got the guts to kind of get into a business like this, which is 12.5 billion would be in the S&P 500, right? If it was public, it's a big business. So, but great company. All right. So let's stop there with Deel. Let's hit these other two topics, because I know we got a hard stop for some of you guys. So, AI, I would just do a quick AI season. So Google invests $2 billion in Anthropic, right? It's a little bit of an interesting deal. They're doing 500 million now and then $1.5 billion, down the road. They already were in on Anthropic. They invested $300 million for a 10% stake in April of 2023. So this is even bigger. What's kind of unique about this is Anthropic also took money from Amazon. So they have like two cloud providers that are, on the cap table for them. But then also in AI news this week, and this is really what I guess I want to get you guys' thoughts on. The White House came out with this AI executive order where they're starting to like regulate AI, right? So really what I want to know, Nick, do you think like regulation for software, which really, I mean, there's obviously regulation in a lot of places, but not like this, right? Is this a good thing or is it a bad thing? I think just in general.
I think it was well played by the government, and actually we responded to a reporter on this one. Effectively, you're showing that within the biggest and baddest kind of companies out there, the ones that are dominating the space, from your Googles to your Metas, but right down to the Anthropics and OpenAIs, I mean, that are new. Like, there are 3 companies in that mix. One is 7 years old, one is 3 years old, and one is 2 years old. They're coming out of nowhere that have signed the documentation, their commitment to the White House on this. So it's pretty cool that they are promoting a safer, more trustworthy AI. And I think by sheer essence of what this technology plays and the fact that we do have these younger companies in the mix, it's such a competitive landscape. So it's kind of setting a nicer precedent without really stifling competition, I don't think. I think the wording was very well done by the White House on this, having read kind of the press release and then the trust, and I forget what it was called, but the guidelines they put out as well. It was thoughtfully put together. Kind of came as a surprise when I saw it blast out, but there was a lot of thought that went in here. They thought about the Department of Defense. They thought about the Justice Department. They thought about the Department of Health. A lot of things were addressed in that. So it's definitely worth giving a read. I think it was well put together.
Yeah, there is a good fact sheet out there for those interested in having a read. But so positive remarks from Nick.
Thumbs up.
So Clint, like there's this idea of regulatory capture, like this guy Bill Gurley, who was like at Benchmark Ventures, right? Like kind of a really notable Silicon Valley fellow. He gave this talk a couple weeks back about regulatory capture, and this is like everyone's talking about this in my little circles, right? About regulatory capture. The White House comes out with this stuff. Now there's regulation around AI. If you're a startup AI company, how do you can't now yet it's extra capital, right, to meet all these. Do you think there's something to that? Is this in fact regulatory capture where like the big firms are trying to ring fence AI for themselves, or do you think this is, like we need this just like we need securities laws for the SEC and FINRA and the like?
Look, I think generally you regulation is serves a purpose, but the libertarian in me believes that sometimes it also stifles the growth cycle, right? Because I think that big companies who have the bigger dollars and lobbying dollars, they kind of prevent their ultimate demise by, I hate to say it, lobbying instead of what I would typically call lobbying, which is bribery in other circles. But I guess you can call it lobbying today. And lobbying they tend to use these lobbying dollars to influence policy that has the effect of benefiting the larger companies who are providing the lobbying dollars. So again, that's my libertarian viewpoint. That is just a perspective. I'm not completely against regulation. I think securities regulation is super important. I think regulation in most industries is important because we have to do its best for the end consumer. And I think this industry needs to be regulated. I just hate to see it led by big platform businesses, which have an outsized gain on the back of this.
Yeah. What do you think, Nick? You had something you wanted to say there.
Yeah. So the way it was set up, and I found the title, and it was Ensuring Safe, Secure, and Trustworthy AI. So the signatories of that were the big name companies that you recognize, and the younger ones were Anthropic, Inflection AI, and OpenAI. And I don't think it's going to really affect the libertarian in you because really it's showing these monsters that can accommodate a lot of these ideas of ensuring security, ensuring trust, etc., will do it, but it's not trying to stifle the little guys in the way I've read it. It's not as though that regulation is going to affect everyone out there that is coming up with the next ChatGPT. That's why I think this is rather well done, because it does want to encourage growth, and it actually even alludes to government dollars being spent towards this sector.
Very positive. Positive.
I think, and I'm totally, I'm not anti-regulation by any sense, but I think there's a propensity to over-regulate in certain circumstances, and I don't think this is one of those. I think it's
so well done. They got it right.
Again, I think it's encouraging because the government knows if they over-regulate this, that we're going to be caught behind the other countries in terms of the competitive war for AI, right? So I think they're trying to do a healthy balance and just kind of leading by example, I think, by corralling those 15 signatories, probably more by now.
Well, I got to tell you, selfishly, I do hope there's a little bit of regulatory capture in there because I just bought OpenAI stock, so I would love to see that go up by several multiples. But we'll see. Yeah. Right? Yeah. We'll see, but okay. Let's hit this last topic, fellow. So, X. Twitter, X. So Musk has now owned X, used to be Twitter, for a year. It's been 1 year, okay, since he walked into that building with the sink. If you remember that, it was, and just this week, in like culmination with the 1 year marking. So he bought the company at $44 billion. It's now at $19 billion. Is this announced? They just announced they're issuing shares to employees at 19, right? So that's a 57% decrease. I know, Nick. So before I get to my question, Nick, you were mentioning earlier that you got some data on APU, right? Secondary market data on APU. So perhaps it could be even lower than 19.
Yeah. So when you say 19, I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to just put a shout out. Is it 19, or is that where he's pricing it?
Yeah.
So you're totally right. I did also see in the news from a reasonable source that the RSUs went out to employees. So I think it was like $45 on those, which we assume is equivalent to that 19 billion valuation. But yeah, we will say new data is coming in that we're seeing across APU, definitely lower. Not going to give the pure dollar price on that, but I think, yeah, when you would sign your own valuation, I mean, you could do that, issue shares there.
Yeah.
Your 409A is probably south of that, which is pretty normal, but where's the market going to price you? So I think,
that's super interesting.
There's definitely some wiggle room on that price.
All right, so then this kind of begs the question, right, Clint? So like, Musk is pretty clear, and they're like starting to publish, publicly their, town hall meetings inside the company and things like this. Musk is trying to turn Twitter, I think, into like a WeChat in China, where it's like the everything app, right? They have banking, they have social media, they have like LinkedIn, like all this stuff in the US where we have like different apps that do this stuff. Musk seems to want to do this just within one app, right? So is this a good idea, right? Do you think like Americans want an everything app? Like, would you want an everything app where you do everything in one app?
I'm the worst one to ask this to because I use Twitter every day. It's my news source, right? So I literally go on Twitter, and it's so user friendly or Twitter, X. I go on X and I look at news, right? That's how I get my news source. That's how I get my information. It's a lot easier than me clicking on all these different news sources to find it. I read a ton of articles. I spend more time on X than any other app that I have in my phone, which is amazing considering that I'm kind of anti-app anyway.
Right.
But I think there's a place for this, right? For people like me who like a simple solution to go to for particular use cases, whether it be news like I use it. Some people use it for content marketing. A lot of people use it for content marketing or advertising. And I think it's a useful platform from that perspective. And I actually like Spaces a lot too. I listen to Spaces, especially when it comes to FinTwit, right? Financial Twitter. So I think there's a lot of useful applications there. And I do think people want it, especially if you're kind of an anti-meta from the Facebook platform perspective. Like I'm not a big Facebook user like I was in college, but I don't use Facebook. I use X now. And so I think is, I think it's useful. And I actually like that valuation. If it's getting down that low, I might be calling you and picking up a few shares.
I got you.
So,
Amen. So, but okay. So like, but Nick, would you, bank through X? Like, would you move your direct deposit to X?
Personally, no. I think there's so much political noise. I think it's a great source for news, but once you start bringing into the fact the noise, like when I log on to my bank, I'm not getting advertised about something other than like a low APR for a new credit card. I don't know.
Right.
Or whatever the hell it is. But I don't want that from, like Clint said, my news source. I'm happy to have other things piped in there, but I also am not a big fan of all the noise that gets pushed through because now there's so much more sponsored content, and hopefully that's driving some revenue for them. But I kind of doubt if you're looking at, let's say, the growth multiple applied to that valuation, or if anyone's putting that on there, they're doing much of anything. I think there was a huge disruption because of COVID, a huge disruption because of Elon Musk's takeover, and now a lot of that's going to fade away, right? So what is that valuation going to be based on is my thought. So
Well, I mean, the guy's
deep value, and it's cool at 10 million or something, or billion.
Well,
But
he doesn't. He
yeah,
doesn't. It's to me. It seems like this is not a social media. At least he's not gonna. It's not gonna be an advertising based revenue model anymore. Like he has plans to make this much like a multi-stream type revenue model
totally.
business, which
Yeah,
I
but
think totally changes the investment profile or the investment thesis,
but
right, of
yeah,
the company.
if you guys are on there, definitely more than I am. I need to up my the
Yeah,
Fusco at the Fusco kid or whatever.
yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
think that's my handle. Um, don't don't you think that you're seeing less appropriate sources come to light though? I mean, remember all the media, like all the journalists got pissed off because of the
Yeah,
blue checkmark thing. A lot of them left, and maybe they're coming back. But now you can't differentiate some random person in XYZ state versus someone from the Wall Street Journal very easily.
yeah, I'm okay
So
with that.
if we're coming in and trying to take this as our news,
Yeah,
but things could be spoofed a whole lot easier, right?
for sure.
Um,
My opinion on it, um, I would much rather have the information and then I can decide myself if it's accurate or not versus having some third party like put their stamp of approval on it for me, you know? So, but maybe that's a more, maybe other people don't feel like that. I could see other people just want to get spoon fed, like,
y-
just give it to me, give me the facts,
Ugh, I'm the spoon fed guy. Like, give me the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, and and then I can
yeah.
alienate the vocal minority that's screaming about
Yeah.
something that's probably not
Yeah,
vetted
look,
in the corner. Like,
that's the investor in
can't.
me though is like access. I just want
Right.
information that other people don't have, right? I feel like it's like a more well informed, like seeing around corners kind of stuff, right? Like if and that's not going to be in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times because if it is, then I've like everybody knows it, so there's nothing special about that, right? So that's the beauty of Twitter to me is you get these like fringe opinions on
Sure.
things, right?
And a global perspective too. It's truly a global platform, so you can tap into publications out of China. You can tap into publications anywhere, and you can click. All it takes is a click to
true.
see where what it's coming from, or where it's coming from, and if it's valid. And I don't know, from a news perspective, I haven't found anything that beats it. I've even tried other platforms when I got sick of Twitter before Musk took it over. I tried other platforms so I could like curate content where it would pull it for me. And it just isn't user friendly. And plus I love it from if you think about FinTwit, which is obviously what we like, you're getting access to great minds. I mean, like, Jerry Parker, for instance, one of my mentors, he's on there. I get to tap into that. I get to watch the Paul Tudor Jones Druckenmiller interview yesterday. I get to see all that in snippets. I get to tap into whatever I want, and it's up to me to kind of curate it. I will tell you, I don't like now where it says for you and then following. I just want to see my followers. That's where Nick's point gets annoying. It's like, I don't want to see all this nonsense. So I'm constantly clicking on it and like, do not show me this. Do not show me this.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to see stuff that they think are my interest. I would rather, just because I clicked on something one time, I'd rather see who I'm following, and I follow those people for a reason, or those publications for a reason, and that's really all I want. It's curated content. I'm definitely not going to bank with X.
Yeah, well, look, that's the thing to me. I got to be honest. If he in fact pulls this off, X is going to be worth way more than $19 billion, right? I mean, Square is actually an interesting firm to look at, right? Because, they were doing payments and then they added Cash App and then now they're doing checking and savings accounts. I mean, they were like business to business, like, point of sale, revenue type stuff, payments type stuff. And now they're like in this consumer facing, they have a huge business. Their stock just went up like a rocket ship, right? So there is something to this. Like if he can pull off, maybe say it this way. I've seen firsthand the way Chinese people use WeChat. And if he can even tap into a little bit of that, if he can get some portion of Americans using Twitter or X, like Chinese people use WeChat, that is going to be a huge business. That'd be worth a lot of money. So it'd be interesting to see if he can pull it off. But to me, that's the investment thesis, right?
Well, look at the content platform. He's got people doing shows directly on there. So I think that is hugely disruptive.
But Clint,
massive audiences.
but can we agree on this though, Clint? Like the key for him is having these other companies come in and build apps or whatever, and leveraging that content or whatever, and seamlessly integrating their products into that unique data source and content source. And that's that's the magic in the secret sauce. And if he could pull that off, I could see, I don't know if all Americans would use it, but I can see a healthy portion of people would be down to do that. Right. So it'd be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. All right, fellas, why don't we call it there for the day? It's 4:00 on the dot, and I know some of us got to run, but it was good seeing you. I know we didn't do this last week, so I enjoyed getting back together with you guys. Right. So thanks for this.
See you on it.
See you guys.
Okay. Yeah, man. I love it. All right, Nicky. That's right, buddy. All right, fellas. You take care. See you.